So welcome everybody. My name is Lacey. I am the community manager for Shadows Edge. We are a small women-led nonprofit, and we were originally founded by the Digging Deep project. Our founder is actually here, Ms. Sherry Sobrato. And our company kind of started back as a a journaling and self-help book for young people going through chronic illness or such as cancer or other illnesses, as a way to address things that come with that, like anxiety and depression. And that was pre-COVID, and since COVID we've kind of expanded to be for all teens wanting to take charge of their mental health. But our main drive will always have that initial spark with helping young people going through chronic illness and cancer. And I'm so excited to be here with Starlight, because Starlight is an amazing company. They've been delivering happiness to seriously ill children and their families since 1982. We're part of the stream to help raise money to get kids some more of those amazing programs that they're a part of, such as the Starlight virtual reality and hospital wear programs. So let me get that donate link real quick for you. I apologize. I thought I had that ready ahead of time. But I really appreciate everybody coming in today. Does anybody have any questions about anything else we do?
So could y'all explain a little bit more about the difference between Digging Deep and Shadows Edge?
Yes, so Digging Deep is our founding company. Essentially, it started out as it was a journaling book. It was published. It's no longer in print now, but the Digging Deep still runs as a foundation and an online blog, and we tend to have that directed towards medical professionals and the parents of teens. And then Shadows Edge is kind of aimed at the teens and with the game that we created. So there's like it's a lot of the things about it are similar, but different audiences, but all kind of that same target, life kind of experiences going on right now. Does anybody else have any questions? No? Okay, so I'll go ahead and get started on the game demo. Let me see. Oops. I'm going to be mirroring with my iPad. The cool thing about this game is it can be used on iPhone or iPad. I use it on an iPad just because I like to use the Apple Pencil. So it's really great for that. Oops. So the game is basically the story. It starts out as there's this city called Shadows Edge that was once beautiful, covered in graffiti art on the walls and just lush with nature, like plants and animals and people. And a storm has come away and pretty much just decimated the city. And the way to bring the city back to life is through journaling and through graffiti art, basically just self-expression. So by finding ways to put your feelings into words and art, you're bringing the city back to life. And so we start out in this first stage of the game. It is called Disruption. And throughout the game, you're going to find different things that are kind of prompt you to self-reflect and to basically explain yourself through the different forms of journaling and painting. And you'll also find we have this pigeon that we call the Phoenix. And basically, when you click the pigeon, you can go through a meditation with him or some kind of breathing exercise. So this also can be used as a safe space during times of stress, to just go and relax and to, just bring your nerves down after like a long day, or you went to the doctor. Being in the hospital is not fun for kids. And when I say kids, I mean teens and young adults, but it's easier to say that. So when you are in the game, you'll see the difference between the worlds, because the world changes the longer you're in the game. When you come in, it's very ghost-like. It's kind of spooky, but so what else is scary is whatever challenge you're going through. So you get to kind of put something to look at along with this game that kind of explains how you're feeling. And right here we'll meet Tyler, the guardian of disruption. You'll run into 3 different guardians in the world of Shadow's Edge. They all have very different personalities. I have a lot of fun talking to them in the game. Tyler is very angry because of everything she's gone through recently for the storm. And, a lot of us are angry when we go through challenge, so it's very easy to identify with them. And so every time you come into the game, the guardians have something to say to you when you click on them. Sometimes it's short wisdom, sometimes it's just things they're talking about. And so when you come into the, oops, sorry, not ready for that, to show you that yet. You have different places to explore in the game. And as you explore, you'll find those missing journal pages that I mentioned earlier, where you can write out whatever you're feeling or experiencing. So I went through the game earlier and collected the majority of them, so that way, I could show you more ahead in the game without having to make you sit and wait for me. So let's say we come in here, and as I'm exploring, I can find a journal page. And it's going to ask you questions that make you kind of reflect on your emotions and what you're feeling about what you're going through right now, whether it's cancer or chronic illness. And this is a great opportunity for if you are a therapist or a child life specialist and you're talking, and sometimes for young people, it's kind of hard to explain what they're experiencing. So these are really great prompts for in a session, you can have them playing. And the cool thing about this is it doesn't always feel like a mental health app. It's making mental health fun. It's a game. So it's a little easier to kind of get them to talk with this. And so let's say we're filling out this one with a young person. What happened to you? What are you dealing with? Do you remember that moment? What is unclear and how do you feel in your challenge? So let's say we have a young person who's gone through cancer or they recently were diagnosed. They could talk about what it felt like that moment they heard the word cancer and just how far they've come. So this is a really great way to start that conversation. I will go ahead and I recently was diagnosed with a chronic illness, and I am feeling angry about it. Oh, I am so sorry for how bad I'm typing. Illness turned into knees, but you know. So, and every time you fill out a journal page, something changes in the world. Here it turned into snow. So something's changing in this city as you go on in the world. So, but what's interesting is you can also paint the walls and bring color to life in your own sense of self-expression into the city. And with the painting tool, you get this really neat, just a whole range of colors and stencils. And so let's just start doing that. I'm gonna use orange. And you get a whole bunch of different tools to paint with in terms of like brush sizes and colors, and you can do different textures with the different brushes, which is my personal favorite to do. So let's say based on that journal page, this person we're talking to is really struggling with anger about their recent diagnosis. So let's make something kind of angry. I'm gonna make I really like to do this, and I've been showing some other players this recently. I like to do gradients because you can do that with these tools. Different really fun things, like lots of interesting ways to express yourself. I recently talked to a player actually, who he started playing Shadow's Edge not because he was going through a diagnosis of any sort, but he came from the side of he was looking for a graffiti and art app. Well, he actually started using Shadow's Edge as basically his graffiti sketchbook. And he's found that it's been a really great place to express himself with unlimited space in terms of walls, because you can't go out and spray a wall without some kind of permit in real life. So it's kind of like a freeing feeling for him. Let's see. So I'm really mad about my recent diagnosis, and I just want to scream. So I've drawn well, she looks happy, but you can always draw over the stencils. That's something I like to do a lot, is to kind of change it, make her look just frustrated instead. And that's something that we've gotten a lot of really good feedback on, is just drawing over the stencils to change the image and make something our stencils don't already have. You've got, different shapes and different ideas that you can go with. Just lots of, possibilities that a lot of the mental health apps you see on the market right now are mostly word-based. Well, this is a really great opportunity for people who have a hard time using words to express themselves. And then you can also add text. And essentially the possibilities are there's so many possibilities to express how you're feeling about whatever's going on in your life right now. And the more you paint and the more you journal, you're going to get rewards for joining and doing more. Well, I've reached level 9 in the game, so I get stickers that I didn't have before, which is a really, cool thing, because that means I can go back and add this sticker to anywhere I want. I was like, that would be really great for what I did on the walls in this part of my city. And you also, when we found that journal page earlier, you get rewards for that as well. And it's just forever that you keep playing, you get rewards. And oops, I didn't mean to click this, but I'll go ahead and show you anyway. So when you join Shadow's Edge, and after you get to a certain point, you get to join this online community of other people who might also be going through the same thing as you. Because everybody is dealing with something, and there's different unique circumstances, but young people can always find solace in knowing that they're not alone in their journey. So this is called Shadowgram, and you can come in and you can share your art and get your story out in an anonymous way and say, I'm really struggling and I want to share these feelings I'm having. And then people can also react and give you a hug emoji, or just like I'm thinking of you today kind of emoji. So we'll go ahead, we'll call this Starlight. So like we can see here, Kiki was feeling really creative today, and it doesn't always have to be about what you're feeling right now, but a lot of people come in just to express themselves for fun. But everybody has their own style. As you can see, you can go through, and it's just so much fun and so inspiring to come in and see what other people are creating based on what they're going through right now. So let's see. And you can leave a message at the bottom. It's a lot like Instagram, but just for the Shadow's Edge world. So you know what I'm going to do? I'll show you how the Shadowgram works. So let's share with the world what this young person is saying, just how this time in their life is affecting them. And it's just getting that word out to probably, if I'm putting myself in the shoes of a person who's trying to express what they're feeling right now, it might help get that feeling off your chest, because you don't have to worry about people know who you are. You don't have to feel too exposed, but you can share what you're feeling and get a little bit of love back from the rest of the community. And the more you do that, the more you build up the level you are in the game, you get more rewards. So let's go ahead and I'll show you the rest of the world. So every phase of the game has a map, and you basically get to just keep exploring and keep painting and finding journal pages. So let's go to downtown. And when we move past this phase, again, this is called disruption, you get even more places that you don't see in the beginning added to your city. So it's not always the same going from level to level. So here's a journal page. So do you love yourself? So, and something that was interesting about some studies that were done by the American Psychology Association is that they found pre-COVID, right now with COVID, things are very much different, but 27% of young people report issues of anxiety or depression, and 75% admitting they can use emotional help. And part of that is also how you view yourself and your self-image. So this is also a great opportunity when you're in a session with this young person you're serving, or if it's your child. This is a great opportunity to start talking about their self view right now, because that's hard for someone to go through cancer, and that's got to affect their self-esteem, because being a teenager is hard. Right? They don't need to go through, that's a lot to go through for a teen. So this is a great way to bring up that conversation. Well, so like with this one, describe the parts of you that you love and how might you feel more confident in accepting the other parts. So this person we're talking to, you start talking to them, well, what do you love about yourself? Well, it might take a little bit because everybody has a hard time. It's like, am I being too shallow right now thinking about that? But let's say I have a kind spirit. And that's a great way to get that to build their self-esteem while you're going through this game. And I'm keeping them really short right now because I know you guys are all sitting and watching me, but again, like when you find that page and you fill it out, the world comes back, and that's where that story comes in. That makes this not this typical mental health app. It's a game. It's fun. There's a story. You're saving a world while also working on yourself. So it's so much more than just a mental health app. It's also a place to escape and to rescue a city, someone other than yourself, and it's really rewarding. And so we can collect the stencils. And I'm sorry if I've been rambling so far. Does anybody have any questions so far about what's going on in here?
Hey, Lacey, I have a question, and I apologize. You might have said this. What level do you have to get to be able to access the shadowgram?
You have to reach the second phase of, I'll go ahead and jump there real quick. Where's it? Oh. So when you go to the next phase, you go through the elevator right here in Central. And I went ahead partially in the game just so you guys didn't have to sit and watch me collect every single journal page. But so you go to the elevator and you go to the next phase, which is disillusionment. That's where typically when you're first starting the game, you get Shadow's Edge the first time. I had it earlier because I went ahead in the game, and I didn't mean to show you guys that as soon, but I accidentally clicked it. But so when you come here, you meet a new guardian, Maisie, and she's definitely kind of in that phase of going through something where you're kind of sad and you're kind of like this sucks. Like definitely, you get to see more of the personality of each of the characters, and Maisie is definitely a little more gloomy, but she's my favorite. But so when we go through, you can see the world change definitely. So the last world was kind of ghostly, kind of scary slightly, kind of like when you first are approaching a new challenge. Now it's kind of cold and kind of not scary but lonely, and that's kind of how disillusionment feels like. If that, at least for a lot of people, I don't want to speak for everybody, but so you go through and you find more journal pages, and a lot of the pages in this one are kind of in different mood than the first one. They kind of follow what this phase was about. Definitely, this one you can tell, like, okay, well, we're in the phase after disruption or anger. Now we're kind of in the phase where it's like, well, why did this happen to me? Why am I going through this? So I'm trying to remember what page I had saved to show you guys. Let's see. So let's go to the park. I didn't get to show you the park before. So throughout wherever you go, Maisie's following you, and she can give you, since I've found so many pages, she's not giving as much, but sometimes she'll kind of just pose questions to think about, you know, different things to think about as you go along with the journal pages. This one's interesting. What makes you feel loved? So you could talk about, this would be a great conversation to have with someone to help them talk to their parents. Like, hey, what is something that would make you feel more special? And how would you write that out so you can talk to your parents about it? You know, like what makes you feel loved? Hugs, feeling acknowledged, and let me think. Let's put what a lot of people appreciate as snacks. You know, and I'm keeping them very simple. These journal pages, you can just keep typing and filling them out just like a normal journal page. And so you know what? Some parts of the city have these really cool already made stencils in the walls, and you can color them in, which is really fun, especially when, you know, because not everybody enjoys drawing the same way. And that's what's cool about Shadow's Edge. You can kind of focus on the drawing, the writing, or both. And we actually, I talked to a player recently who did not enjoy drawing before she played Shadow's Edge. But once she started playing, she kind of got curious and she started drawing. And, you know, later when we talked, she had said, you know, I actually found myself able to express my emotions in a new way. And I never liked drawing, but I found myself being able to use colors and shapes to say things I was feeling that I couldn't get out in words. So, and what's cool is you can do one or other or both. You know, you can just play around. It's a safe space for young people to just express themselves and work through whatever they're going through. The possibilities just of self-expression are just pretty much endless. Excuse my horrible drawing. A young person would be able to do this a lot better than me. So, you know, there's just so many possibilities that you could do, and I'm just trying not to keep you guys sitting and waiting for me for forever on one spot. So what I really like is every painting canvas, it moves with the world too. Like where in real life can you spray out your feelings on a whole wall in a park? Nowhere. This is pretty cool. I have a theory that young people who know that graffiti isn't technically allowed without permits probably feel a little naughty, you know, getting to spray paint the walls, like you're getting away with something that you shouldn't be. So, like, it just, the whole world is for to personalize. So, oops. Let's go find some more journal pages. So, not in here. So, and some of these pages are going to be kind of hard to find. I'm not going to lie. Part of the challenge is going in and getting these pages. And I have found myself playing the game and really having fun trying to track down these things, because it can be kind of hard actually if you aren't paying attention. So let's go over here. Here we go. So tough times can make you grow. And this would be a great time to build resilience in a young person, because that's something that, you know, is super important when you're going through times of challenge. And that was a big part of the Digging Deep project, is to help young people build resilience. through these times of challenge. So, we could start the conversation with this person. I have learned that I'm stronger than I ever thought possible. Like, you could talk to them, be like, how have you changed since this time of challenge? How have you, what kind of knowledge have you gained about yourself? So again, this is, when you're playing on your own, it's probably a lot easier to write down stuff, but when you're prompting a young person during a session, this is probably a really great opportunity to, even if they don't fill it out then, they might go home later and think about what you guys talked about and, maybe go back in the game later and fill it out. I'm stronger. Oops. And then the plants come back, and you're bringing life back to Shadows. It's just like when you're working through challenge, when you finally kind of learn things about yourself and work through them, you're kind of bringing a part of yourself back. So, like, I love the metaphor of this game. So it's not every day that you can say that you work on a game that you get excited about. So let's see. And the more you play, the more the city expands, because the last phase you didn't get to crawl up the side of a building and find pages on the rooftop. The masked me. This, I personally find that this would be a great question for young people who tend to hide their emotions even when you're trying really hard. And, it's just like, I hide the anger I feel, and I pretend to be happy. Like, you could talk about these kinds of how you they mask these feelings.
I think these prompts are very helpful for adults too, especially during stressful times. I'm curious to know how y'all came up with the prompts. Did y'all have therapist or child life specialist weigh in, or just hearing from your teen population?
A little bit of both, actually. So we had a team of child life specialists, narrative psychologists. Let me see, I have. So, yeah, so child life specialists, narrative therapy is a big part of going into how we created the journaling prompts. And then we worked with teens throughout the process, like, how do these questions work for you? Do they make you think about yourself in a certain way? So it kind of went through several different paths to get it to the perfect place that we were happy with these prompts. So definitely it's the teams that were in the original play testing were a big part of it, but also the just the help of tons of amazing and wonderful child life specialists and psychologists for teens and young adults. So
That's cool. I've never heard of a narrative therapist before. I'll have to research that field.
And I'll just jump in here just because I happen to be on the call. You're doing an excellent job, Lacey, explaining everything. But Lacey wasn't in the project. A lot of the original prompts in the game came from the book and the Dig and Deep Journal. And those came from a variety of different experiences, both through my personal experience with illness, but also leading support groups for about 15 years before I did the book. I used to actually, and since you work with child life specialists could appreciate this, we used to kind of play this game with young people where we would put them on a panel, but it would be a fake panel, but pretend like they were on a TV show and were being interviewed by a TV audience. And we let all the kids make up the questions that they wanted to be asked as expert witnesses on this TV show. So a lot of the questions really were based on some of the questions that these kids that I used to work with, direct one-on-one in a hospital setting, would come up with. So yes, we had the focus book to specifically say, how are we crafting the questions to the game? Because, with a game, you can't go on and on. You have to be very short in how you ask the questions. So we wanted to cull from that, what the simplest way of saying something in the most profound way, and also make them general enough where a large variety of people could relate to them at one point through their process of healing emotionally from difficulty. So that's where they came from.
That's awesome. Thank you.
Oh, and narrative therapy, I should probably just say too, is simply put, is that it's one form of, psychotherapy type, therapists training their theoretical perspective. And it basically means we heal through our stories. And what that means, if you can imagine, say you've lost somebody in your life, and it's very typical of people that are experiencing grief to need to tell that same story over and over again. And why do people do that? And it's because every time they tell it a little bit differently, because they have sort of aha moments as they're speaking their story or telling their story, or in this case, writing their story. They gain a little insight, they try something new, and then they incorporate that into the next time they tell the story. And it's kind of, that's what narrative therapy is. So we heal through our words.
Thank you so much, Sherry. You can definitely explain it a lot better than I could. I wasn't a part of it. I'm still relatively new. I didn't get to see
it really, Sarah, if that's something that interests you, it's my favorite way. And so it's really the whole game and is based on the fact that if people can express themselves through writing, some people can express themselves through writing, through words, and some people, the words come first and then they do the art. Some people need to kind of loosen up and do the art first and have fun with it, and then makes the words easier to come. And so part is narrative therapy, that's the word part, and part is art therapy, which is the art part. Oh, very nice, Lacey.
Thought I just
that's good.
some art while you were explaining.
Yeah.
And maybe we can add also, so this is Rosie, I'm also on the Shadow's Edge team. Maybe we can also explain there's a lot of input that also went from a psychological side into, the story that has been hit, the city that's been hit by a storm, the way that the guardians are. So there's a lot of metaphors in there. A lot of our players make comments about how they see themselves in one of the guardians that you meet, because they have specific ways of dealing with the situation they're in, and they each represent sort of the phase that they're in, as Lacey was explaining before, with disruption and disillusionment, and then the last phase that I'm sure she'll show later as well. So there's a lot of thinking that went into the colors, the background, the storyline, and all those kind of things that sort of mimic that journey that Sherry was talking about, that we also go through with the prompts.
Yes, thank you, Rosemary, for explaining that. And again, just like Rosemary is saying, how young people can find a part of themselves in the Guardians. Every person I've talked to that's played the game has found a favorite Guardian, and a lot of people say Pax, which we'll meet next in the next phase. Some people say Tyler, because maybe they're still in that part of the processing of emotions. I love them all, but Maisie's my favorite just because I think she's my favorite little cute guardian that I like so much.
So they've also really done an amazing job with designing the Guardians. They have a non-binary feel, and they're easy to relate to. And to your point, Lacey, your favorite might be kind of in the same space that you are when you're going through this journey.
Definitely, yeah. There's just been so many amazing benefits. Like, the story is just, there's so much you can just keep digging into it and finding more that you love about it, and that you and I'm scrolling through because I want to show you guys the next phase, and there's just one journal page left to find. So once we find it, we unlock a whole new world for us to meet a whole new guardian, and a whole new, just Shadow's Edge is just coming back to life, and you'll get to see that next. So like with someone who's going through treatment, what are you protecting yourself from and why? Maybe, I don't know, Sherry's definitely had more experience with this than I have. Maybe it's that feeling of when you're going through treatment of feeling like a burden to your family. Maybe that's a scary thought for young people. I don't want people to see that I fear I'm a burden during my treatment. And this is just, a lot of young people may not even think about these things until they write them down. It's kind of like journaling in real life in general, just self-exploration and mindfulness. And and I just finished this world and gathered pages. Well, right here, if I had painted on this wall for my armor, you can paint something about what this journal prompt made you feel. Maybe you felt you kind of were starting to feel like, I want to keep expressing this particular one and I want to be able to remember what I was talking about. So you would go to this wall and paint some kind of imagery to go with this prompt. Like what are you protecting yourself? You could paint an armor with the stencil it gives you. So it just keeps kind of prompting you to do more on more of these topics, on more of what you thought from what we were bringing up in the prompt. So let's go to the elevator, and now we'll get to see discovery, which is that third phase of going through a challenge, where you're kind of learning more about yourself. And when you meet Pax, you'll see her dialogue. She's very much different from the other two. She says, I knew it. I knew you'd come. Wow, the day is finally here. A new writer here in Shadow's Edge. I've been here forever. I love her dialogue. It's so cute. And nothing has happened. Then out of the blue, pow, stuff starts changing. There's green again, colors and art all over the walls. It's amazing what you've done. So green, so much life. Awesome. I'm confident we can do this together. My name is Pax. Oops, I said that already. But I'm the guardian of discovery. And just the more you talk, she's definitely got her own personality, like the other two as well. And so, people who might feel a little bit more kind of closer to being okay with what they went through. A lot of people who get further down the road might be, you never get over completely a challenge like that, but you feel like you've been able to kind of accept what happened and use it to your advantage of understanding yourself and challenges you go through in the future. So this definitely, the city, you can see it went through something, but it's even more beautiful now with all the green and the flowers. And again, throughout the game, you'll find these pigeons. I'll go ahead and show this to you. Let's say this person's had a really long day. They've, things have been rough. Work or school was just awful. They were already kind of feeling, kind of just overwhelmed while they've been thinking about whatever they went through. So let's say they're pretty sad today. And you go through this diaphragmatic breathing exercise. And it talks you through it before you do the exercise, saying things like, by practicing, we learn to breathe correctly, helping our body and mind relax, try to find a quiet place and a comfortable position, like sitting in a comfy armchair or lying in your bed. And what I like about this is you can kind of take your time. So if, let's say you just need something quick, you tap through, you follow the steps, maybe you memorize them so you can do it later. Or if you want to really take your time, you do each step, depending on how stressed you are that day. And then you click when you're ready. So, and I know we only have 12 minutes left and I want to leave time for questions. And then at the end, oh, never mind. Sorry, I got mixed up. So it's going to ask you to do this one. Usually I have in the past, for me, when I play the game, I memorize it and then I do it on my own, doing the diaphragmatic breathing. So, but what's really nice is you have that visual, and that's where we kind of have that little bit of what you can get in other apps like Calm and Headspace, but still you're in your own world separate from everybody else. And that's what's really nice about this one. And I don't have the sound on, but it's got this really nice dinging sound that kind of helps you follow along if you close your eyes. So, and at the end of it, it asks you, how are you feeling now? And you can kind of reflect and be like, you know, I'm feeling better. I feel a lot better than I did before I did this. And I find that I go in and first thing I do is talk to a guardian, and then I talk to a pigeon. And everybody, when they play the game, does it differently, but this is time where they give you their little hint of wisdom. Connect with others, reach out. When you let people in and spend time together, sharing our thoughts and feelings, asking questions, really listening, connections grow. Put yourself out there. The more real you are with real people, the more real they are with you. Let other people in. And every pigeon has a different one. So you learn, you don't get bored finding these. So, and you couldn't do this in the previous phases, but you can go up high. You can explore new parts of the city now that you couldn't before. So I'm king of the world, just drawn away on my tower. Oops. I think my pencil is dying. Yeah. Really just, you get to go in and just make this entire city from top to bottom your own city. Just, the possibilities are endless. I love my family. You can go in and just, and we've seen people make birthday cards in the game in Shadow's Edge, and so they take screenshots and send it to their family. So there's so many things to get out of it in therapy and out of therapy without feeling like you're in a therapy session. You don't have that especially for a young person who's already in and out of doctor's offices when they're going through treatment or challenge. You know, they don't need to feel like they're a patient more than because they probably already don't want to feel that all the time. So this is a nice way to feel like they're having fun while still working on the emotional side of what they're going through. And you can just see how beautiful this city has gotten as you've gone through. And the more you play, more rewards, more colors. And I would love to leave this part up for questions. I know I've kind of rambled through the whole time we've been here. So if anybody has any questions, I'd love to answer them.
Lacey, I have another question. Most of our contacts are child life specialists, and ideally they are sharing this resource with their patients, just as they did the physical digging deep books. But if they have it on their iPad, that's a sort of a universal resource for their patients. How do you recommend they set it up? Should they name their character something that resonates with the hospital? Or should they reset it every time and let a patient work through it? What do you think is the best way for short interactions to get something really meaningful out of it?
That's a good question. Yeah, Rosemary, do you have any suggestions?
Sure. Yeah. So if you have a shared iPad, what you can do is you can work with different logins, so you can do different registrations. This is particularly helpful if you have, for example, recurring sessions where you might want to, for example, take the Mask Me, the question that Lacey showed, right? And you could give that as a homework to a person and then say, okay, do that painting and write something about it. And then in the next session, we can talk about it. And that automatically means that, there's some time allotted during the session, but also the young person could work on it at home, and they could then both jointly discuss that in the next session again that they have together. That way, if you create a login, a personalized login, you get like a nickname, as I think Lacey showed before when we were posting on Shadowgram, and you log into it, and that's your city. That's the city that the player sees. You can share that obviously by sharing the screen with somebody else, just like we have done, right? Or just to look at the phone jointly. You can also take screenshots and share the screenshots, but it is your own personal city. If you then have a second a patient that comes by, or a second young person that you're working with, then that person can have a separate login, and those logins won't get mixed up. You have the separate instances of the game. They're all on the iPad, on that same iPad, so you can use that same hardware for multiple patients. Does that answer your question well enough, Sarah?
Yes, that is so helpful. Thank you. And we might be able to put that in our product description through the Starlight Hub, which is very generously powered by Shadow's Edge. And that would be great resource and helpful information for our child life specialist.
Thank you, Sarah.
And I'm getting some comments in here. I would love to, I don't know if anybody else has read these. I also want to mention, earlier while Sherry was talking, I found the donate page. Just $10 helps Starlight continue their amazing programs. If anybody is willing to donate, that would greatly help this wonderful foundation that we're happy to be partners with. Just because, you know, kids need things, the kids still need to be kids through their current challenge and treatment. And, you know, that's something wonderful about the Starlight Foundation that they do. They help provide books and toys and video game systems and virtual reality, so these kids can have a moment of fun without worrying about their cancer or their surgeries or their treatment. So if you know, if you are able to, please donate to this wonderful foundation. The link is here. I'll put it in again because I know the message thing is getting kind of long. So I'll go ahead and read these over. So Amy Jamison Casa says, Carol Westby, PhD, has some great presentations on how SLPs, speech language pathologists, can support the team. This would be a great supplement. I could see how the kiddos that have a speech language pathologist on the team working on feeding and swallowing or cognitive language therapy could use this name to get their minds off the icky and boring parts of therapy at the same time. And that's a really cool way to think about it, the uses of Shadow's Edge. So thank you, Amy. It can also be really helpful to combine some of the journaling questions and then expressing yourself in colors too. And that's very true. So yeah, did anybody else have any questions that I can answer about the game or what we do or who we are? No? Oh, here, microphone, is that mine? Oh, so thank you everybody for joining us. I apologize if I rambled a little bit. I just get so excited to talk about the game. But if anybody ever has any questions about what we do, you can email me at lacey@shadowsedge.com, and it's LACEY. I'll put it in the chat in case anybody wants to copy and paste. So we also run a teen blog for young people who have chronic illness or cancer or just general, you know, a mental health challenge that they want to talk about to help someone else not feel so alone in what they're going through. And we also have monthly webinars all about different things we do. We actually ran one on Monday with Sherry that was absolutely amazing, all about cancer survivorship. So if anybody is interested in knowing more about our webinars or being on our monthly newsletters, feel free to email me, because I would love to invite more people into the Shadow's Edge and Digging Deep family. So I really appreciate all you guys coming to our webinar or our streaming tonight. Sorry, I'm used to saying webinar.
Thank you so much, Lacey. It was super helpful, and I really appreciate our partnership. And I know everyone at Starlight really loves the good work that y'all are doing and the resources that y'all are able to provide to our hospital partners. It means so much to us. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. And it was nice to see a familiar face.
Yeah,
So
it's good to see y'all again. Y'all have a great night.
you as well. Thank you, everybody.